When Karen moved into Willow Creek Estates, she didn't just bring her belongings. She brought a mission. The neighborhood was immaculate, a suburban dream of trimmed hedges, pastel shutters, and cul-de-sacs echoing with the laughter of children on scooters. But Karen saw more than a well-kept community. She saw a kingdom in need of order, and she was ready to crown herself its enforcer. From her very first week, Karen was the kind of neighbor you couldn't ignore. She showed up at HOA meetings early, always clutching a leather-bound binder filled with documents, photos, and highlighted regulations. She didn't just read the community bylaws, she memorized them, quoted them like scripture, and wielded them like weapons. She once flagged a mailbox that was 2 inches taller than allowed, and another time she insisted a neighbor's Halloween decoration, a harmless, inflatable ghost, was a safety hazard because it slightly obstructed the sidewalk. Other residents had mixed feelings. Some admired her tenacity, especially the older homeowners who appreciated her dedication to neighborhood standards. Others, especially younger families, found her exhausting. But Karen didn't care. In her eyes, she wasn't just maintaining order. She was preserving legacy. Rules exist for a reason, she often said, almost as a mantra. Without rules, we have chaos, and chaos breeds decline. So when she entered the community hall one balmy Tuesday evening with that familiar determined glare in her eyes, people braced themselves. Karen didn't bother with pleasantries. She marched straight to the front, placed a large color photo face down on the table, and waited as the room quieted. "I have a matter of urgent concern," she declared. Her voice was sharp, commanding attention. This community has stood for uniformity, dignity, and respect for its bylaws. And yet, it seems those standards are now being openly defied. She flipped over the photo with dramatic flair. It showed a backyard pool, glimmering under the sun, with a bright sky blue spiral slide arching gracefully into the water. The slide, clearly new, stood tall and proud, about 8 feet of twisted plastic joy. But the joy didn't reach Karen's face. Her expression was tight, lips thin, eyes narrowed. "This," she continued, tapping the photo, "is a direct violation of Section 8, Article 12, Unauthorized Structural Additions." A few people leaned in. Some murmured. One older man adjusted his glasses. In the back row, a teenager quietly whispered, "Oh no," to her mom. "It's Jenna's," someone finally said. Karen turned slowly, dramatically, toward the speaker. "Yes, it is. Installed without submitting a formal request to the HOA. No blueprint, no material samples, no safety inspection, just popped up one morning, like a weed." Jenna, sitting 2 rows from the front, flinched but didn't speak. She was a quiet woman, kind, respectful, the type who brought cookies to the summer block party and always helped stack chairs after meetings. Her 2 young sons had been delighted with the new slide. You could hear their joyful splashes throughout. The afternoon, and many of the neighborhood kids had started drifting over, towels slung over shoulders, eager for a turn. Karen's gaze swept across the room. "We cannot allow our community to become a circus. What's next? Inflatable castles, backyard zip lines. Perhaps someone would like to install a Ferris wheel next to their tulip beds." Her voice rose slightly, just enough to stir that familiar discomfort in the crowd. "This isn't just about a slide. It's about setting a precedent. Either we uphold our standards, or we lose them entirely." The HOA president, Mike, cleared his throat and leaned toward his mic. "Karen, thank you for bringing this to our attention. The board will look into the matter." Karen nodded, satisfied. She sat down slowly, folding her hands atop her binder as if sealing her point with dignity. The moment stretched, awkward and tense. Jenna shifted in her seat, and someone behind her patted her shoulder in quiet sympathy. "I just thought the kids could use some summer fun," Jenna said softly. "It's safe. I installed it properly." Karen raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She didn't need to. Her point had been made. The rules were the rules. After the meeting, Karen walked home with a sense of pride swelling in her chest. She passed Jenna's house, the gentle glow of patio lights casting a warm hue on the water. She saw the slide, still glistening from the day's use, and the faint outline of water toys scattered near the edge of the pool. She paused, looking at it for a long moment. It was bright. A little garish, maybe, but undeniably joyful. Still, Karen shook her head. Joy wasn't the issue. The issue was structure, consistency, the law of the neighborhood. If everyone did what they wanted, what was the point of a homeowners association? What was the point of community? She continued home, her heels clicking against the pavement, the binder under her arm like a badge of justice. The stars blinked above, serene and silent. But underneath them, in the stillness of suburban order, something had shifted, and Karen had no idea that her crusade for compliance was about to come crashing down in the most ironic way possible. Next morning, Willow Creek Estates woke up to an unusual sound, a strange blend of excited shrieks, splashing water, and the rhythmic thud of feet hitting plastic. At first, most neighbors assumed it was just Jenna's slide again, the one Karen had so passionately tried to get removed the night before. But as the noise grew louder and more frequent, curious eyes peeked out from behind curtains and blinds. What they saw left them stunned. There, in Karen's backyard, stood a slide. Not just any slide, a towering, vibrant, dizzyingly tall monstrosity that spiraled not once, but twice before depositing its rider into the deep end of her pool. It was even larger than Jenna's. The slide was a shocking electric green, with rainbow stripes that shimmered in the morning sun. It looked like it belonged in a theme park, not behind a beige colonial house in a buttoned-up suburban enclave. By 10 a.m., kids from 3 blocks away had already arrived. Word had spread fast. "Karen has a slide," they shouted gleefully, as they raced through side gates and hopped onto her lawn. The woman who just yesterday had scolded a family for leaving their garbage cans out too long was now the unintentional host of what looked like a neighborhood pool party. Jenna watched. From her own backyard, mouth slightly open. Her boys were at the fence, gaping at the spectacle. She hadn't let them join in. Not yet. It didn't feel right. It didn't make sense. She kept replaying the meeting in her mind. Karen's voice, sharp and confident, calling her slide an unauthorized structure and a threat to community standards. And now this? She wasn't the only one confused. Mike, the HOA president, showed up around noon. He walked around Karen's house to the backyard and was nearly hit by a flying beach ball. A child whooshed past him, sliding down the massive structure with a squeal. Karen, lounging on a striped deck chair, wearing oversized sunglasses and sipping iced tea, waved casually. "Mike, lovely day, isn't it?" He blinked, stunned. "Karen, what is this?" She sat up slightly. "It's a pool slide, obviously." "Yes, I can see that. You filed a complaint last night about a smaller version of this exact thing." Karen removed her sunglasses slowly. "That was before I reconsidered." Mike stared at her. She continued, unbothered. "You see, after the meeting, I realized I might have judged too quickly. Children need healthy outlets. Outdoor play is essential. And besides, if slides are going to be part of our community landscape, I thought, well, why not lead by example? Invest in quality, safety, aesthetics." Mike blinked again. "You're calling this an example of aesthetic harmony?" Karen gestured toward the base of the slide where a unicorn-shaped floaty bobbed in the water. "Tasteful and whimsical. The children adore it." "Karen, you didn't submit plans for this." She sipped her tea again. "Of course not. It's a prototype, temporary, an exploratory addition to assess impact. Consider it research." Just then, a small boy tumbled off the end of the slide into the pool, came up laughing and shouted, "This is the best day ever!" Mike looked At Karen, she smiled like she'd won an award. "You understand how hypocritical this looks, right?" he said. Karen tilted her head. "Not at all. I adapted. Great leaders do that." By mid-afternoon, the neighborhood was buzzing. Phones lit up with texts. Photos circulated on group chats. And by the evening, nearly every family in Willow Creek had heard the story. Parents were confused, kids were thrilled, and the HOA board was furious. Jenna didn't say much that day. She spent most of it watching the chaos unfold from her porch, arms crossed, sipping lemonade that had long since gone warm. She wasn't one for confrontation, but something about the whole situation lit a slow-burning fire inside her. The injustice, the smugness, the sheer gall of it all. The following day, the board convened a special emergency meeting, an extraordinary measure that had only been used once before, during the Great Grill controversy of 2018. The community center filled quickly. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sour tension of outrage mingled with secondhand chlorine. Karen arrived last, late and unapologetic. She brought cupcakes, each topped with a miniature plastic slide. "Just a little treat to lighten the mood," she chirped. No one laughed. Mike cleared his throat. "Karen, we've reviewed your installation. And, as you probably expected, it's a clear violation of the same rules you cited just days ago." Karen tilted her head. "Yes, well, I believe the board has discretionary power in unique circumstances." "You didn't request an exemption," said Linda, another board member. "You didn't notify anyone. You just did it." Karen smiled. "It was a fluid situation. I acted swiftly, proactively." "Karen," Mike said with finality, "both your slide and Jenna's fall under unauthorized structural additions, and as such, both must be removed immediately." The room went still. Karen's expression wavered for a half-second. "Both?" Jenna stood up slowly. "Mine's already gone," she said. "I took it down this morning. You made such a scene about it. I didn't want to cause more trouble." The room murmured again. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it once more. But the children love it. It's brought the community together." Mike raised an eyebrow. "And the rules?" Karen said nothing. "The rules you said were sacred," Jenna added, her voice calm but clear. "The ones you used to humiliate me." Karen looked down at her binder, still sitting on the table in front of her. She didn't open it. For once, the words she usually had ready at her fingertips refused to come. The vote was unanimous. The slide had to go. That night, the once cheerful glow of Karen's backyard was dark. The towering slide, a monument to pride and irony, sat in pieces on her driveway, plastic bolts and rainbow panels scattered like broken dreams. The children stopped coming. The excitement fizzled out. Karen watched from her window alone. And across the street, Jenna turned on a gentle sprinkler arch over her pool. Simple, rule-compliant, and quietly delightful. The kind of joy you didn't need a binder to defend. The following Saturday dawned quietly over Willow Creek Estates. The usual buzz of lawnmowers and birdsong was joined by something else. An electric silence, a tension that rippled just beneath the surface of the neighborhood's pristine calm. People weren't just sipping their coffee. They were watching, waiting. Word had spread like wildfire, even faster than news of Karen's outrageous slide. The HOA was holding a formal community hearing, and it was all anyone could talk about. The recreation center was packed to the walls. Residents filed, in early, many holding reusable water bottles or iced coffees, some with arms crossed and eyes narrowed. The usual cluster of chatty moms stood whispering near the entrance, glancing occasionally at the door. Even retirees who hadn't attended an HOA meeting in years showed up, sensing something momentous in the air. Everyone was talking, but no one needed to say it out loud. They were here to see what would happen to Karen. Karen, The woman who had once marched into these very meetings like a general going to war, now entered quietly. Not late, not early. Right on time, but not with the same gusto as before. There was no binder in her arms this time, no stack of color-coded violations. Instead, she carried a small notepad and a bottle of water, like she was trying to look casual, maybe even human. But everyone saw the tightness in her smile and the slight twitch at the corner of her jaw. She took her usual seat near the front, but the chairs around her remained empty. People gave her a wide berth, not out of fear, but out of calculation. Karen, once the loudest voice in the room, was now the center of quiet judgment. Mike, the HOA president, stepped to the podium and tapped the microphone. The room fell silent. He didn't look angry exactly, just tired. Tired of the drama, the contradictions, the unnecessary chaos. "We're here today to close the matter regarding the unauthorized pool slides," he began, his voice steady. "As many of you know, Karen filed a formal complaint against her neighbor Jenna last week for installing a backyard slide without HOA approval. The board was in the process of addressing that complaint when, less than 24 hours later, Karen herself installed a similar but larger slide in her own yard, also without approval. There was no murmuring now. Everyone knew the facts. They'd seen them with their own eyes. Both installations violated the same rule. Mike continued. Section 8, Article 12 of our bylaws. Unauthorized structural additions. We held an emergency board meeting. We reviewed the timeline. We considered every argument. Karen leaned forward slightly. Her expression was unreadable. The board's decision, Mike said, pausing for effect, was unanimous. Both slides must be removed. He let the words hang in the air. There were no gasps. Everyone had expected it, but the silence was still weighty. Jenna, sitting a few rows back, stood up calmly. "I removed mine," she said clearly, 3 days ago. A wave of quiet applause followed her statement. Not thunderous or theatrical, just enough to show solidarity. A community's quiet way of saying, "We see you. We respect this." Karen didn't stand. She didn't speak. She sat very still, her lips parted slightly, as if about to say something, but nothing came out. Mike looked at her directly. "Karen, do you have anything to say?" She blinked slowly, then stood. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. "I understand the board's decision," she said, voice quieter than usual. "And I will comply." It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a defense. It wasn't even an apology. But for Karen, it was seismic. The woman who had turned neighborhood bylaws into a personal religion was now standing in front of her peers, defeated by the very rules she had weaponized for years. She stepped away from the microphone, sat down, and stared at her water bottle like it held answers. The meeting ended without further drama. People filed out quickly, talking in hushed voices, avoiding Karen's gaze. Jenna left without lingering, her boys waiting for her in the car with sun hats and juice boxes, ready for a summer day that no longer involved drama or judgment. By the afternoon, Karen's backyard was a scene of quiet dismantling. The slide, once the centerpiece of unbridled hypocrisy, was being taken apart piece by piece. A handyman she'd hired unscrewed the bolts methodically, stacking colorful panels on the driveway like relics of a toppled empire. Children who had flocked to the structure just days before rode past on bikes, glancing curiously at the carnage but not stopping. Karen stood to the side, arms crossed, watching it all. A neighbor walked by, offered a tight-lipped nod, and kept going. She didn't wave back. It wasn't just the slide that had come down. It was the illusion of authority, the mask of superiority she'd worn for so long. And now that it was gone, all that was left was a woman with a half-empty yard and an equally hollow reputation. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned a soft lavender, Jenna's backyard lit up with gentle color. Not from a slide, not from anything extravagant, Just a sprinkler arch, simple, elegant, completely within HOA guidelines, gently misting her backyard as her sons darted through it, shrieking with joy. A few of the neighbor kids joined them. Laughter filled the air again, lighter this time, less manic than before. It wasn't about the biggest toy or the boldest statement. It was just kids being kids, neighbors being neighbors, summer being summer. Jenna sat on her patio, sipping lemonade and watching the joy unfold. She didn't gloat. She didn't look across the street at Karen's now empty yard. She just smiled, serene and content. Karen, from behind her blinds, watched the sprinklers mist catch the last rays of sunlight. It sparkled like something magical. And in that moment, she realized something important. The rules hadn't betrayed her. They hadn't failed. What failed was her belief that the rules were a sword meant to be swung only by her. But community wasn't about enforcement. It was about fairness, about kindness, about joy shared in simple ways, not imposed with binders and accusations. She turned away from the window and let the blinds fall closed. For once, Karen said nothing at all.